As we saw last time, there's a lot of equipment keeping my pond clean and healthy, but that doesn't mean I don't have to pull my weight too. Hello, my name's Andy, I'm the Ginger Pond Keeper. Welcome to episode 107. This video is part 2 of a series of 3 videos that are all about my filtration and how I keep the pond a healthy environment for the fish. Each episode does work as a standalone video, but if you'd like to watch part 1 first, and therefore watch them in order, where I describe what filters I have, why I have them and how effective they are, click on the link on the top right of this video or in the description, watch it and then come back here. Right, back to part 2 properly. This video is all about the work I have to do to support the filtration in keeping the pond clean and healthy. Filters vary in how much cleaning they need, but all, even the most automatic of filters, require some maintenance. Mine may be at the higher end of that. As I said in part 1, I also have work to do frequently in the pond to address the amount of detritus that my filtration doesn't collect, and there's 2 ways I achieve that. One, by weekly pond vaccing, and less frequently, approximately monthly, by getting in the pond and using a fine net. However, this video shows my weekly cleaning and maintenance routine, so we'll start with the pond vaccing. But before that, I need to address drainage. During maintenance, there's a fair amount of water that I need to send to waste, but I don't have easy access to a drain in my back garden. So as a result, I need to pipe wastewater to a drain at the front. To achieve this, I have pipework in the garden, most of it underground, with 2 access points, which then goes through my garage with a coiled length that I position in the drain, weighted down, just to ensure it doesn't spray dirty water all over the neighbour's car or garden, with a weight. That done, I then get out most of the equipment I need, including buckets, net and a brush, the dirty water pump and the pond vac. On to setting up the vac. I put most but not all of the pipes together as I clean the front half of the pond first. I add the remaining pipes later to reach the back. I place the vac on this beautifully made sleeper bench to aid its gravity drainage into the black tub, in which I place the drainage pipe with an added fine mesh bag over the end to stop larger items, for example acorns that fall into the pond, getting into the dirty water pump and causing issues. The dirty water pump also sits in the tub and pumps the water discharged by the vac to waste. Then I just need to plug the vac and the pump into the external socket, attach the end of the dirty water pump pipework to the front access point, open the tap and it's ready to go. So I start by vacuuming the front half of the pond, as I said, targeting whatever detritus I can see, the worst areas. I go slowly. Previous videoing of my vac revealed that quick movements mostly succeeded in just pushing muck around, with actually less being vacuumed up. As my vac has to stop suction while it empties the chamber, this is a rather painstaking and time-consuming exercise, but is worth it. As the vac stops, it discharges the water, and as you can see, the worst larger items of muck are collected by the mesh bag while the tub starts to fill up. When it's full, I use the pump to empty it, sending the water to waste. It would be nice to have a way of removing the dirt from the water so I could return it to the pond rather than lose it and have more to top up, but that's something for part 3. I'll not show the complete job. It can take up to 45 minutes for the whole of the pond. As I've said, it's important to go slow, especially in the places where detritus tends to congregate, where the pond changes depth, by the pump, by the pipework, even when the sunlight and shadows don't allow you to see clearly on the day. The stop-start of the vac also stretches this job out, and more expensive vacs overcome this. I'll maybe discuss this more in part 3 as well. The other slight challenge is avoiding the rudd, as they are definitely attracted to the smells and detritus that are stirred up as you vac, and it's quite a challenge not to vacuum them up too, one that I did actually fail once. Once the front half is done, I then add 2 more sections of pipe and work on the back half, especially along the rear wall and by the lily baskets. It's not possible to get everything with the vac in this position. Intermittently, I get in the pond, as I've said, and use a net, but also I use the vac from within the pond, but that's usually a once or at most twice a year job. So then I move on to the skimmer. Although I empty the basket intermittently during the week, I do a weekly fuller clean. By the way, ignore the blue bag, I'm in the middle of sorting the pavers. Once the skimmer pump's turned off, I remove the lid and then use a clamp to keep the flap open as the clip is broken. Instead of removing the basket, I remove the leaves with the net. This is to prevent losing any smaller detritus back into the skimmer body as I lift the basket out. It also helps with any frogs that may be hiding there, although this is becoming less and less of a problem over time. I also use the brush to clean the basket in situ, as it's more effective and easier than doing so later when I take it out. Bigger items done, I then use the vac to also clean algae and smaller items off the basket. Next, I remove the basket and do a quick brush to get any remaining dirt, although the vac and brushing while in the skimmer has already removed most of it. Then I scrub the insides of the skimmer chamber to detach any scum on the sides and bottom of it, and then use the vac to remove that, scrubbing away or netting any more dirt as I see it when the water level drops. The dirty water pump is continuing to send the resulting water to waste. Again, a way of sieving the dirt from the water so it can be returned to the pond would be useful, and again, more on that in part 3, maybe. That all done, I can replace the basket, open the flap and replace the lid. Job complete, well, at least this stage. With all the vacuum complete, I can remove this bag from the end of the pipe, which shows the amount of muck the vac collects each week, at least the stuff that the bag collects. Finer stuff is still in the tub. As I said in part 1, this amount of vacuum is needed due to the weaknesses in the mechanical filtration my system has, principally due to choices I've made regarding pump position. See part 1 for more about that if you've not already. Then it's a case of moving all the equipment to the back of my garden by the filter shed. After which I can then attach the dirty water pump pipework to the rear access of the drainage pipework. First step is to place the pump into the sump and open the filter shed drainage by removing the cap, as both the pressure filter and Tempest drain to it, with the dirty water pump once again sending all of that to waste. Therefore, the first job in the shed is to clean the pressure filter, which is a pretty simple job. First, turn the dial to direct the water to waste rather than the Tempest, and then pump the handle, which compresses the sponges in the filter and helps to remove the dirt. For some utterly scientific reason, I do this 50 times. I also take the pressure filter apart intermittently to do a fuller clean when I power wash it to remove any lingering dirt, but as I've said, this is just the weekly clean. I run the water to waste until it runs clear. When it does, I can then turn the dial to redirect the water back to the Tempest, which I clean next. I start by turning off the main water pump and closing the main valve and the valve to the Tempest, but not the top outlet one. This is because I use an air pump to boil, by which I mean agitate, the media when cleaning, and the extra air pumped into the system needs somewhere to escape to. I leave the Tempest boiling away for a few minutes before opening the tap at the bottom of it and draining it to the sump, before refilling the Tempest and repeating the cleaning, all of which I do usually 4 times. You'll notice even during this last clean that there might be a couple of leaves or larger organic items still in there, but the media itself is clean. Like the pressure filter, I maybe once a year strip the Tempest down and clean out any of these items that aren't removed by normal cleaning and flushing. Once the Tempest is refilled after the last clean, I run the pump only long enough to ensure the multi-bay is fully filled, as I need it to be when I clean it, and then I turn off the pump and close the valves. The first step in cleaning the multi-bay is to block the outlet to the moving bed with a cap. and then remove the top grids on each bay of static media to enable the air discs to boil clean them. To do that, I adjust the taps on the SpeedFit air lines to redirect the air from the moving bed and the pond to the two static bays. I'll say right now that I need to do some adjusting as they're not working great at the moment, but they clean well enough for now. It's one of the jobs on the to-do list. Next it's time to clean the brushes, which I do in the vortex chamber. I find this kind of annoying, not sure why, maybe I'm just lazy. Anyway, I work through each brush and place the clean ones in the tub outside. I then take the grid the brushes sit on and give that a clean, before removing the dirty water pump from the sump and using it to drain the vortex chamber, after first giving any settled dirt in that a scrub to make it easier for the pump to collect it. Once that's all done, I place the pump in the brush chamber, as this is connected to the first static chamber, and use it to drain that after the media has been boiled. Now, this worked great, or at least better with my old pump, as it was narrower and reached the bottom of the chamber. My new one doesn't, so I have some scooping to do later, as you'll see, another thing I may talk about in part 3. I then remove the cap inside the vortex chamber, which allows the water in the second static bed, which is also the final bay of the filter, to flow into it, which will allow me to later pump it to waste. I also scrub the brush bay while it drains, as this again allows the pump to collect more of the dirt. When the static beds are drained as much as they can be by this point, the first is limited as I need to scoop more water out, the second one limited as levels equalise in the bay and the vortex until I start draining the vortex out, so I place the pump back into the vortex and then scoop out the remaining water from the brush bay. As the dirty water pump pumps water from the vortex, more flows in from the last bay. Once that's emptied and that finishes, I can start preparing to refill the system. First, I start by replacing the small grid and the brushes, and then replace the two static bed grids. However, I leave the cap in the outlet for now, as water and media from the moving bed would be siphoned into the multi-bay and end up blocking the pipework if I take it out before the water has filled the multi-bay. Once the grids are back in, I open up the valves and turn the pump back on. After a few minutes, the water has filled up the multi-bay, and once the outlet is below water level, I can remove the cap, and water flows back into the moving bed. I don't clean the moving bed weekly. In fact, I've learnt over the last 2 years that I've had my current setup that I really don't need to clean it much at all, although I regularly check this to ensure it's still the case. That complete, I can top up the pond, which I do by turning on the water tap, no flow rate adjustment needed as that's permanently set, and it flows through the 3-stage dechlorinator before spraying into the pond. All that's now left is to tidy up, return everything back to the little shed, remove the hose from the front drain and hang it back up, and then that's, aside from monitoring the pond top up, everything done for another week. Right, there you go. That's part 2 of this series of videos about my filtration. If you have any questions, observation, or even why on earth do you do it like that, reactions, please share them in the comment section below. In part 3, I will be discussing improvements I can make to my filtration, both of the type that over the next couple of years I could maybe realistically afford, and ones of the type that I would need a lottery win or a rich relative I didn't know about passing away. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, I really do appreciate it. If you've liked this, please like, please share, and if you're not already subscribed, please consider doing that too. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.